Hi, I'm Lulu. I'm a compulsive overeater. And today we're continuing our discussion on step 8 and 9. So after going through your step 5 and your resentment list, you have a list. Your step 8 is the list of all people you have harmed, and you become willing to make amends to them all. You're just looking for that willingness. Also, I can remember now that as I was going along in my resentments and considering amends, it was coming up for me like some people from some things that were not on my resentment list, but amends that I felt needed to be made to some people that I didn't have them on my list because I didn't resent them, but I thought about um, something I had done that I thought I might want to make amends for. And when I brought that up, she said to me, just keep a list. And I think I had about 2 or 3 people that came up during that process. It came up to me, of course, when you're going through step 5 and you're looking at your part, you end up kind of getting into this habit of like looking for your own part, which is kind of like the habit we want to bring forward, which is step 10, right? So, so yeah, so I did have a few people there. So that would be part of your step 8 list too. So anyway, I have learned, I have come up with what I call amends guidelines. Now, they're not, some of them are in the big book. Some of them you would see, like they will say, well, like it says, do not make amends to anybody if it would cause them injury or others, them cause injury to them or others, right? Um, and if you read that whole chapter on amends, you might find different guidelines to consider when you're making amends. Um, Taking those from the big book, also taking those experiences from when I went through the step work. Also, as I now work with a sponsor in OA who does things a little different. She is like the queen of amends. This woman is the queen of amends. Um, until I got really good at finding to be sure that there wasn't anything injurious to anybody. Was this going to cause harm? Is this going to make somebody uncomfortable? Like there were things I couldn't see because I was learning. Um, there were some guidelines that she had that my original sponsor did not have. And when I think about the amends that I did make back 7 years ago, a lot of them did not follow these guidelines. And guess what? Perfectly fine. This is not a rule book. This is just suggestions. I did them. Um, there would be some amends that I made that my sponsor today would say, "Ooh, that wasn't the best idea." You know, that you said that. Um, um, but something, it all worked out fine. And whoever you're working with and however you're guided through the amends process will be just right for you. But I made as my I think I've made it clear before that I went through the big book in AA with an AA sponsor, and then I kind of transitioned into OA as being my primary recovery program. And I have a big book step steady sponsor in OA, but I didn't need to do the steps again. A lot of people say, "Oh, you can't transfer the credits." Something when you get well, you're well. Yeah. And fortunately, before I got to step 4, I caught my cigarette addiction and my food addiction. And I think if I went through the big book in AA with my AA sponsor and I was still eating and smoking, or let's just say eating for now, if I was still eating, I may have come to OA and said, I got to do that. I would question the quality of my work and the depths of it because I was an active addict. So fortunately, oh, God just shone the light on me right before I got to step 3. He was like, don't do it, Lulu. Don't you get down on your knees and turn your will and life over to me the way you're eating. So I did it. I put the food down. It was so uncomfortable and it was so hard. I had just put down the cigarettes the month before, and I put down the booze 3 months before. It was hell, but it was worth it. And the quality of my recovery was um, perfect in my eyes. And although always a work in progress. Um, so anyway, these are the guidelines. So now I'm working with a big book step study sponsor who I do my step 10s with. I do, she's been in program for 30 years and she's just the big book girl. And she's taught me an awful lot about what she considers proper amends. And when she explains it, I understand it. And then like I'll write another one and I got it wrong again. And she'll be like, "Oh, look at that! Look at that! What you were going to say that word. What do you think that word would feel?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're good. You're good." you know. And so after I've been with her for several years now, and having gone through the process myself, having brought my step 10s to her and amends, and having brought many of my sponsees amends to her, because I would tell my sponsees, like, you want her to look at it. Like, trust me, you want her to look at it. I would always ask permission and say, "Do you mind if I run it by my sponsor?" Um, and she would just have, like, just in case she's going to see something that I don't see. And she still does. She still does. I sent her one about a month ago, and I was so sure. I was so sure this was good. We went back, this sponsee and I went back and forth on it like 25 times before we got rid of all the bullshit, and then kind of followed some of these guidelines and picked it all apart. We had like 3 or 4 perfect sentences. And I was like, oh, it just was such a sensitive subject. And I was like, "Do you mind if I send it to my sponsor?" You would think like I would be past that. And I'm not, because I'm just like you, you know? And um, damn, didn't she find something? Damn, didn't she find something? And I learned again. So I have compiled um, some things that she has shown me, some things that I've seen unraveled into what gets picked out of an amends that is questionable. So I wanted to share it with you. So if you're writing an amends one day, unless your own sponsor has different instructions, a lot of times a sponsor will just say, just write an amends. And if that's all the instructions you get from your sponsor, then you can just use these guidelines to kind of just be careful at that point. So the guidelines go like this, and I'm going to there's going to be on the blog spot right underneath this recording is going to be a PDF to these guidelines that I'm scrolling on the screen right now. So the first kind of amends is a face-to-face amends. These are the kinds of amends, and then later on in this document will be kind of like some little rules of thumb to follow. So the face-to-face amends is when you visit the person for the eye-to-eye contact during the presentation of the amends, and to provide them an opportunity to speak their mind to us and quietly listen. So that would be like, you know, um, this is what I did, and I'm sorry. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. And is there anything, if you ask them if there's anything else that they have a problem with you, it gives them an opportunity to speak, for you to listen. Wait, you won't get that with a letter, you know, unless somebody writes you back. So sometimes a face to face is the best. Then there's the verbal one. So when it's not geographically possible to visit the person, but the amends can be done on the phone, which would still allow for the opportunity for them to speak their mind. Also with Zoom, it's now easy to do verbal amends face to face. So really, face to face has a whole different meaning now. You know what I mean? Because we're all face to face right now. A letter or an email. So when the recipient of your amends will not or cannot meet you or take your call, you can write to them. Or if someone feels uncomfortable meeting you or getting on the phone with you, or if someone you don't feel physically or emotionally safe with, some would prefer that you write to them and you can leave it up to them. But if you don't get a clear answer and some time has passed, just write it and send it. Some people don't want, some people are very uncomfortable in situations like that. And if you say, I'd like to get together with you just to talk about, I would like to talk about something, sometimes that would freak people out. And we don't need to say, no, I need to see you in person because my sponsor said so, or because this is for my recovery. We always consider the other person in their comfort. That makes sense? And graveyard amends would be for those people who have passed. You write an amends letter from you to them. Then you write a second letter from them to you in response. And then you just let your pen flow as if they were talking to you. You put them in envelopes and seal them up, put your name on one and their name on the other. You go to the cemetery, you invite God in, you read the letter from you to them. It's a good idea to get somebody, a friend, I mean, a recovery friend is best. My sponsor took me to get somebody to drive you there so that you're free to experience any level of emotion and not have to drive. And then you go back home. So now she took me to the cemetery. She picked me up, took me to the cemetery. I did what I needed to do. I read my letters. I had 3 at one grave site. I had 3 to read. And she just browsed. She went through the cemetery. She loves cemeteries. So she was going through the cemeteries and the cemetery and just reading everybody's tombstones. And then we got in her car. She took me back home and she told me to go in my room, sit quietly, invite God in, light a candle, and read the letters. I read the letters back from them to me. And I have to say, I did a lot of amends. Not a lot, a decent chunk of amends. This all seemed kind of silly to me at first. I'm telling you, those 3 were the most powerful, healing amends that I made, even more so than with people that are alive. It's just really miraculous. A behavior change is you haven't harmed this person, so you don't have to make like a verbal amends to them or a letter or whatever, but you see that behaviors that are not contributing to the good of the universe in a loving way. This is the way I've behaved with this person. I don't believe that I've harmed this person, but I'd like to stop doing this because I've seen it in some of my writing. I've seen it enough times that it seems to be a pattern of my behavior, and I want to change that. It's likely in your 7-step prayer at this point too. It's just kind of like your amends to the world would be to discontinue these behaviors, include them in your 7-step prayer, and pray for them to be lifted. Then there's an attitude adjustment. You haven't really harmed this person, yet you see that your attitude, perception of something is not contributing to the universe in a loving way. Your amends to the world would be to change your attitude about this specific topic, include it in your 7-step prayer, and pray for it to be lifted. So you see there's a difference between something that's a behavior and something that's an attitude. An attitude would be the way I think about something, and you might read it on me. That might be what needs to be adjusted. It's like, oh, I pride myself on not telling people off, but I kind of do it with my eyes. I could, with my facial expressions, like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be like that anymore. And so some things are more of like an attitude in the way you're thinking, and then you're always kind of resenting people because of it instead of accepting people. That would be an attitude adjustment. Behavior changes would be things that you're doing that you want to stop doing. Those are actual like physical behaviors, or verbal. Something that a behavior would be something that people without a doubt would be experiencing with you. So as you go through your list, you'll see where these make the most sense for you. So this was like probably 75% of the people on my list. My amends was to mind my own business. I haven't harmed this person, yet if I would just mind my own business and just let people be who they are, God would smile. The universe would be blessed by me. Live and let live. Live and let live. right? Include this character defect in your 7-step prayer. Start working on minding your own business. When I started minding my own business, when I got I created the habit because of this enlightenment about myself, um, that not everything is my business. As soon as I separated myself and I could clearly see what was, not clearly, it clearly comes with time. And I'm still not perfect, but I can see where uh, my business ends and your business begins. It's not always the same line with different people. Um, but as soon as you stay on your line, oh, I'm telling you, just frees you up. You have so much time when you're not in other people's business. You have so much more peace because it's like, wow, they get to do that. They get to be like that. It doesn't even have anything to do with me. It just doesn't have any, like one of the things was like I resented this guy. Who's married to a good friend of mine, and I just thought he was a very weak man, and I thought that he was like he was like a real pushover. Like she just like bullied him, and he was just like this always cowered down. And I had him on my list, and it's just like he's not even my husband. You know what I mean? He's not even anything. Has nothing to do. Doesn't affect me at all. That is her husband, who she happens to love very much. And like when I see her bullying him or treating him mean, and it's bothering me that she's being mean to him, and it's bothering me that he's not sticking up for himself. How about you just mind your own business? Because it has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with me. Nothing. Okay. And then sometimes there's just nothing, there's no amends, there's nothing to do or say. It was just some crazy thinking. You can see it clearly. The only one that was truly affected by this resentment was myself. It's just, you look at it and you're like, it didn't hurt anybody. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to do anything. I don't know. I just think crazy. And I had some of those too. So now the guideline for writing amends. So this is when we have either a face-to-face, a verbal, or a letter email. Okay, so now we're going to prepare an amends to somebody, whether it's in writing or face-to-face. Um, it's going to be something that's written and discussed and worked on with your sponsor. Um, so the guidelines to writing an amends, the way that I have learned, this is just the way I've learned. This is not, this whole blog spot with all of these recordings. This is not the law. This is just what I do and what Shalise does and what we're both still learning. I mean, I'm still reaching up for help. She's reaching up for help. That's just the way it's going to be. And it's fabulous to have people to reach up to. Um, uh, this is not like, if anybody had different ways to do this, I would never argue with it. I would just say, hey, all I know is that if somebody's making an amends and everybody feels good at the end of it all, and your recovery is stronger and deeper, it was right. It was right. If it took you a month to do your 4th step or a year to do your 4th step, if you come out the other end feeling happy, joyous, and free, and you've got the promises of the program, then you've done it right. And there's just, people do it different ways. I like to do it by the book. And these guidelines are only to be sure that I don't harm anybody, because I can be so gosh darn harmful in the ways in which I needed to make an amends. I can be harmful in my amends because I'm not quite clear. It just seemed so innocent. It seemed like a beautiful thing to say. No, it wasn't. And so this is just like my trial and error. So it's not the gospel. It's not, I hope it helps anybody. One of the amends is to keep it simple. We can get on with this big, long story. There is no story. This is what I did. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. So you find out what you did. And in my experience in working with people, when people send me their list of what they did, most of it they didn't even do. They think they did. I'm telling you, this is what I see. It's just like, no, that you don't need to apologize for something like that. That's not harmful. We just look at now that is harmful. That one I'm not really seeing. Um, Maybe you were just protecting yourself, or maybe you were, you know, I don't know. I don't have examples right now. I don't want to get bogged down in examples. But basically, it's as simple as this is what I did. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. And be sure that it doesn't include excuses for your behavior. Example, oh, I was such in a bad space then, or I was acting like that because I was drunk, or I said that because I was afraid of losing you. So, oh, I'm going to make them feel loved. I'm going to let them know, like, oh, I would have never done that if I wasn't drunk, or, oh, I'm in recovery now. I'm feeling so good, but when I wasn't feeling good, look at what I did. Look what I did to you. No excuses. We don't. That is just that. Just it just steals from the power of the amends. It steals from it. So no excuses. No, like, uh, even sometimes you'll find that people will even uh, provide excuses for you. Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. And what I usually say is like, no, it is. It isn't okay. It isn't okay. Sometimes people have a hard time receiving an amends. It could be feel a little awkward for people, but as long as I'm going to it with the vigor of my recovery and the passion of my recovery, it makes the person comfortable. And it's always been in my experience, has been a good experience. So another one is be sure you don't tell people how they feel or how they must have felt. Example, I said this to you, you must have felt so insulted. Oh, I cheated on you, you must have been devastated. We don't tell people how they feel because we don't know anyway. We don't know how people feel. Remember, didn't we already unravel all that stuff in our fifth step? It's just kind of like, we're not mind readers, we're not fortune tellers, you know? And this is like we don't want to be historians anymore. We don't need to live with all this past stuff. If we can clean it up, we don't even need to go there anymore. So we never tell people how they feel. That must have made you feel, because what if they didn't feel that way? What if I said, um, I'm so sorry that I treated you that way. You must have felt like so less than a man. And he just thought, I never felt less than a man. Did you think I was less than a man? You know what I'm saying? You see how you can just, if you just try to guess how somebody felt, it could be wrong, and you're just putting ideas in their head. And it's not even like, that's where it says, unless one do so would injure them or others. That would be injurious for me to say that to somebody. Um, that's just an example. Um, be sure you don't detail things of the things you did if it would cause further harm. For example, instead of saying, remember the time I told you you were a poor excuse for a man? Well, that was wrong. I'm really sorry for that. Instead, I would say, I said hurtful things to you. You see the difference? You see the difference? Instead of saying, remember when we were kids and I called you a fat cow and you told everybody I told everybody how ugly you are. Instead of saying, it's like, we don't need to bring that back up, right? Instead, you'd say, I see I have some typos in here. I said you would, instead of saying, wait, instead you'd say, I said very cruel things to you when we were kids and that was wrong and I'm sorry. You see the difference? Instead of saying, I called you this name and I told you that I said cruel things to you when we were children, when we were kids. We don't need to revisit that yuck. We don't have to bring up the yuck in something that's beautiful, but we don't want to avoid it. We can just word it in a more gentle way. Instead of saying to your kid, I said to you, you would never amount to anything and that you're lazy and stupid. Remember when I said that to you when you were 10? I'm sorry. And then the kid's like, wow, I don't even know if I remembered that. It's like, you said that to me. My own mother said that to me. See, we don't want to cause further harm. You would say, I said things that were very unsupportive and not very encouraging and insulting, and it was wrong, and I'm sorry. Can you see the difference? So if my child remembered one thing He remembered when I said lazy, but not stupid. He doesn't remember when I said he wouldn't amount to anything. He would, but that lazy stuck in his head. He would think when I was saying I wasn't supportive, I was not encouraging and very insulted, he'll be like, yeah, she always called me lazy. But why does he need to know those two other things that would cause further harm, right? So that's why we want to kind of leave out the details so that we're not saying something that they don't already know by keeping it vague. So we don't bring up the details. We don't want them to hear stupid, lazy, fat, ugly, because it will feel bad. And we don't want to conjure up these insults during the amends. That makes sense? Be sure not to ask for forgiveness because them forgiving you is none of your business. It's not necessary for your recovery. Apology, accepted or not, does not affect your recovery. If you can imagine that. It seems like everyone would really have to have a happy ending in order for you. That's just you wanting what you want again. Like we've already been through that in step 5, like a fear of not getting what I want, fear of not getting what I need, right? It's like, I need this amends to be accepted. And you don't. So you don't, I hope you could, I hope you can forgive me. Nope. It doesn't matter what you hope. It doesn't matter what you hope. That's between you and God. And if somebody says, you know something, I don't accept that apology, I'd like to never see you again. You just say, okay, and you know something? You walk away and you and God are still 2 peas in a pod, and God gets it. God forgives you. You've done your part. You've done your part, and you can let it go. You can let it go. Most of them don't end like that. Never say, I said it or did it because I love you, because that's an excuse. You know, I just told you, you didn't, I told my kid, you'll never amount to anything. Oh, that's because I love you and I wanted you to be successful so that you would have you'd have a good life and you'd have money in the bank. And I want telling him, you're lazy, go get a job, all this stuff, right? It's because I love you. No, it's because you were afraid. The reason I did all these things and said all these things was based out of fear. And fear and love um, cannot exist together. So it wasn't because I loved him. That wouldn't be why I would do those things or say those things. It was because I was afraid. Never tell anyone something they don't already know. Ooh, that's a big one because it will be harmful. We don't come clean with secrets so we can feel better, while others will suffer to find out. Will this person be harmed if they hear this? Do they really need to know? It almost seems like if you're keeping a secret, if you were going to share that secret with them and it would be harmful, then it seems like it was just you trying to get it off your chest. Amends is not about getting things off your chest. It's about getting right with God. And I think God would rather have us go to him with that than to go to the other person and tell them something they don't already know. I don't have to go to somebody and say, I really apologize to you because I remember when we worked together 10 years ago and you were my friend. I was talking behind your back every day to other people. I was really no friend. It's like they don't even know. And now they know. Like, why do they would they really need to know that? I would probably owe more an amends to the people's ears I talked off as I was talking about people, saying I was disloyal to my friend and I was making you listen to me. I'm not saying that that's an amends to make, but what I'm saying is that it would make more sense that way than the person that doesn't even know. We don't go tell people things that they don't already know, because that is harmful. You don't want to say anything that presents any expectations for a future changed relationship. If they want a new and improved relationship with you, You'll likely be the first to know. You just let it play out in their time. You don't pressure anybody with expectations or hopes on your end. Your only job is to state what you did, admitting it was wrong, and saying that you're sorry. That's what an amends is. Um, if I make an amends to my ex-boyfriend and I have expectations that now we're going to get back together, or I hope he wants to back together with me, that's not even that's not even the spirit of amends. That would be like me looking for what I want. Also, I don't go into there and uh, if I'm making an amends to an ex-boyfriend, it doesn't even mean that I want to get back together. You know, it just means that I just want to make an amends for harms that I've done. And I did go to an ex-boyfriend. Generally, we don't go back to exes because it's just not the right thing to do because people are in new relationships. They're married now, and the ex-girlfriend doesn't come and say, "You got a minute? I want to talk to somebody else's husband." We don't even go there. But this boyfriend, it had been kind of fresh. It was a fresh breakup, a recent breakup, and yeah, and I did not want to get back together with him. I think he thought maybe that's what was going to happen, but it didn't. It didn't. I didn't want it to. I just wanted to own my side of the street. Um, don't impress yourself by telling them how much you've changed since you stopped drinking or working the steps or eating. Should put eating in there. The way you have changed is wonderful, but it doesn't belong in an amends. The way you have changed is between you and God, and just bask in that glory. Because I don't need to tell you, like, people are like, if they say, "Oh, look at you," like, saying you're sorry and stuff. "Oh yeah, I've been telling lots of people, and I'm sober now, and I'm living a really good life, and I'm just a really wonderful person." It's just like you just kind of like totally yucked up the amends. Like you just don't do that. All right. So nobody has to know how fabulous you are, especially people that don't want to hear it. We save all this really good stuff that we share together. Like when we're all like, "Oh, I've been abstinent for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months," and we're all, "Yay!" Right? And it's just like, if I go tell somebody that's not in program, "I've been abstinent for this long," and they're just like, it's a whole different feel, you know. Um, where Bill Wilson says in the book, how many times we're a demonstration. We are always out there to be a demonstration of this program, not a promotion. I don't need to promote anybody to be in this program, but I can demonstrate. And all I do to demonstrate is I just be. Like we read it at the meeting yesterday. It was like God is the doer, and I just be. What would God do? What would He have me be? It's right there, that paragraph that we read yesterday. I get to just be, and then if somebody feels attracted to that, then they'll ask me about it. You know, it's kind of cool. Um, always include, I shouldn't say always include, consider including some positive qualities about the person at the end of the amends. Can you add anything positive about the person that he or she is? Are they kind or smart or creative, talented? Are they generous, funny, or a good example of a certain attribute? Try to add something nice after the apology. Don't go overboard, just a note with a few true things about them. True. And when I work with sponsees, they'll send me a few little things about that person. That's wonderful, and then I'll ask them questions about it because I really want to make sure it's true. Because we don't want to be blowing smoke up people's butts. You know what I mean? We don't want to do that. Trying to get points, trying to get brownie points. Um, um, and they'll be like, "Well, yeah, I guess he's really not that creative. I guess he's not that smart." It's like, what makes him so smart? "Oh, I don't know." It's like, tell me what makes him so much smarter than other people that you know. And then we get a real true compliment. It's like, and we learn how to truly compliment people. And So that's always a nice thing, just is to point out, especially like in like maybe past relationships, um, or to your husband, your current husband or wife, whereby you can say all the things that you did wrong and how you're sorry, and then to find some really nice qualities about um, your spouse that maybe they don't hear very often, if at all, because we get kind of wrapped up in anger. But anyway, what else we got here? Oh, that's just, if you're I just at the bottom of this document, that's going to be attached as a PDF. If you're working on an amends and you'd like to run it, find me for assistance, just to reassurance that it follows the guidelines, just feel free to email it to me. And I might ask you if I can get, if I'm stumped and if I want to be sure, I might send it to my sponsor, because we're all here to just help each other. It's not like who's smarter, who's better. It's just like who's going to catch it, who's going to make it. It's just this. They're so important. That's why this phase of our development, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, painstaking in that we consider all these guidelines to make sure, it just shows you how important it is, because we're going to be amazed before we're halfway through. So to get these promises at this point in this amazement, um, these are very carefully done because they're so important. It's so cool. And it's so just, it's not this big, long presentation about how awful you are and all the awful things you've done. It's just, it's a wonderful experience to be with that person. And if you're on step one and you're listening to this, you probably don't believe me. I didn't believe it either. But you have to trust me and those that have gone ahead of you, that when you get to this point, um, you will welcome it, and that's when the really, really light, bright miracles happen. But what's really great is before we get to this point, before we get to step 9, there's recovery and there's noticeable um, growth and recovery and levels of progression of recovery with every step, all through the steps. So it's not like you're miserable until you get to step 9, and then ooh la la, here comes, the sky just opened, I got everything. It's all little bits that just fill your soul and fill your spirit, and it all starts with keeping that food down. Keep the food down, and then you get to this point, and then it's just an amazing experience. um, do you have anything we're good? Okay, so I'm going to say, my God, do I talk a lot? um, okay, let's end this and we'll do some other, the next ones will be like, we'll do some examples.